Well, I want to thank Larry and also Stephen Ross and the University of Washington Tacoma for inviting me to moderate this important forum on wrongful convictions. And I say important because really what could be more important than someone's freedom? Like many of you, I grew up believing in the American ideal of justice, that the justice system is about fairness, that someone is innocent until proven guilty. So really, what could be worse than the idea that there are innocent people sitting in prison, spending years, decades, in some cases their entire life, locked away for something they didn't do? Since 1989, and these are pretty amazing numbers, when DNA testing was first used to exonerate people, at least 283 people have been exonerated. 17 of them served time on death row. Much of the work in these cases has been done by the Innocence Project, and we have two representatives of the Innocence Project who will speak this evening. In Washington State, there have been 4 men exonerated since 2008, and we're going to hear from one of them, Alan Northrop, this evening. And what recourse do they have once they're out of prison? Well, in Washington State, there is a bill right now being considered that would create a claim for wrongful conviction and imprisonment, and we're also going to hear about that this evening. So let's begin our discussion. We have 5 very knowledgeable and fascinating people to speak this evening, and I'm just going to give a brief introduction of each of them, and then they will come up and give a presentation. On the far end is Alan Northrop, and Alan is an exoneree from Washington State. He and co-defendant Larry Davis were convicted of multiple charges in 1993. The principal evidence leading to their convictions was erroneous identifications made by the victim. Both Alan and Larry spent 17 years in prison in Washington before DNA testing obtained by the Innocence Project proved their innocence in 2010. Sitting next to Alan is Jacqueline McMurtry, and she's an associate professor of law at the University of Washington and also director of the Innocence Project Northwest. Since its formation in 1997, the Innocence Project has overturned the convictions of numerous wrongly convicted inmates. Next to Jackie is Philip Sorensen. You may have a program that lists Mark Lindquist, who's the Pierce County prosecutor, but Philip is filling in for him. And he is the Assistant Chief Criminal Deputy Prosecutor in Pierce County. And next we have Stephen Ross, and he's an Assistant Professor of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences at the University of Washington Tacoma, and also Director of the Center for Applied Social Cognition Research. His research examines the social and cognitive processes related to decision-making in criminal cases, primarily in the area of eyewitness memory. And last but not least, of course, we have Laura Zarowski, and she's worked in the social justice field for almost a decade, and she is now the policy staff attorney for the Innocence Project Northwest at the UW School of Law, where she works to address these issues of wrongful convictions from a public policy perspective. And she's also collaborated on the legislation that's being considered in Olympia. So the way this is going to work is each presenter will come up and do a presentation, and then at the end of that, we'll have a question and answer period, and we have mics in the aisleways that you can go to ask your question. And we begin with Jackie McMurtry.